Welcome to Blender Frenzy. I am Justin, and I originally was going to do a quick tip video on this, but it requires maybe a little bit more explanation, and also there's some tips and tricks in there. But I'm going to try to do this fast and efficient, so let's get started. Open up a new instance of Blender, of course, go to New and then Video Editing. Don't save. Gonna collapse this here, and then hover your mouse over here, add in our color, of course, our color strip, pull this up. I also like to uncheck limit view to contents. That means I can click my middle mouse button and drag, just give me a lot more room. So the first thing I'm going to do is duplicate this by pressing Shift D, pull this over here. This one I'm going to change to a white color, and then with my timeline cursor right over it, we're going to go to the rendering tab. This is where we're going to add our mask like we did last time. Mask, then come to view, 0.5, that brings the 2D cursor right here, so that when we Shift A, add in a circle, it goes right in the center there. Before I scale this up though, I actually want to change my output properties to make the resolution to be square. So instead of 1920 by 1080, I'm just going to use 1080, and I'm going to do 1080 up here. So we have this, and then I'm going to S to scale, and we're going to scale that all the way up like this, and maybe even a little bit more. Okay, and then Shift D to duplicate all of those points, right click to cancel, and then S to scale inwards to your desired thickness there. Okay, if we come to mask display, now someone asked about the mask display. This might be something different, it might say something different, but I think it's still up here in 3.3, so I'm using 3.2.2, but if you're using 3 and above, I think it's going to say this mask display over here. So let's go to overlay, and you can see that we just have a circle and we want a ring. So we're going to go mask and then holes, and then that second one will create that ring. And I'm going to actually even title this mask ring, and then go to video editing. We're going to take this color strip, go to modifiers, and add in our mask, and click mask here, and then choose our mask ring. And there we go. And we're going to save this one out as its own image. So go back to the rendering. I'm actually going to duplicate this. So one of these is going to be rendering, one of these is going to be masking. I'm going to double click this one, masking. This will be rendering. And then we'll change this back to view. That way we can have two different workspaces for these. So I'm going to press F12, and that gives me this single image. I'm going to go to image, and then save a copy, or save as, or save, it doesn't matter. Save a copy, and then just navigate to the folder where you want to save it, and I'm going to call this mask underscore ring, and it's going to default to PNG. I'm just going to come over here to say JPEG and black and white and save that. By the way, I'm going to save, we have one scene right now, we're going to create multiple scenes, so I'm going to save this scene as build, because this is what we're using to build ours, and this goes away just because we renamed our scene. Doesn't really matter. You can just hit F12 again and get it back if you need it back. But we already have the image saved, so it doesn't really matter. And in fact, I'm actually even going to get rid of the mask here because we don't need it anymore. Not for this. I'm going to hover my mouse over Control T to show our frames here. You can also go to View and then Show Seconds. You can uncheck that or check that. But I'm going to go to frame 100 and then snap this to that frame, and then I'm actually going to go to the first frame, frame 1, and then depending on whether you want it to start at 0% or 1%, you can change this. So to start, frame could be 0. I'm going to just keep it at 1. So frame 1, I'm going to click and drag this, and then I'm going to press Control so that it snaps it right here to 1. Then select this one first, Shift select this one, Shift A to add in an effect and a wipe. And now we just have a regular wipe that goes down just like this. So with the wipe selected, let's come to our strip tab up here and change the transition to clock. And now we have something that looks like this, but it's going the wrong direction. It's going counterclockwise, and we want it to go clockwise. So just check in and it will flip that direction, and it will look something like this. Of course, we don't want it to go, we don't want it to start right here. We want it to start straight up and down. So let's scroll down to the transform and then type in 90 for the rotation. So then it will look something like this. Okay, we're going to make our end frame 100. Come back to our rendering tab, and we are going to make sure we have these how we want them. So 1080, that's good. 24, I'm going to change this to 23.98 frames per second. And frame range and everything is good here. Output, I'm going to do double forward slash. And then I'm also going to click this button. I'm going to navigate to the same folder. I'm going to say mask anim for animation. And I'm going to say .mp4, enter, and accept that. And uncheck file extensions. Keep this at FFmpeg video RGB. Color management should be standard. If it's not, just check override and change this to standard. But I'm going to follow scene for now because it's right. Encoding should be MP4. If you're making an MP4, that's what I'm making, and that's what I suggest. And then we don't want any audio here, so we're going to change the audio codec to no audio, and then make sure we are saving. So let's save our work, and let's pull this up here. We're just going to make sure that the wipe is actually doing what it's supposed to be doing. So at 100%, it should be fully white. At 50%, it should be halfway. Now, it's not exactly halfway, and I didn't find a way to actually get this halfway, but it's fine. It's close enough. So 25 should be 25% because we're going in percentages. That's why we're going from 1 to 100. And maybe it is because we didn't start at 0. Oh, it is. Wait, hold on, but it is. That's how I figured it out. And it is that I actually just figured that out. So basically, instead of starting at frame 1, I changed it to frame 0, and then I just pulled this back to start at frame 0. So frame 0 to 100 will give us the result that we would expect. So at 25%, you have a quarter of it filled. At 50%, I'm just pressing F12 to render a single image right now. It's halfway. At 75%, it's 3/4 of the way, and so on and so forth. So this should get you very accurate results. This is what we want. So I'm going to save that again. By the way, this is another reason why I do this before I render it out, because you catch problems like this. But we are ready now, so you can go to render and render animation, or Control F12. And then we'll render out the whole animation. I was going to say per frame, and it is doing it per frame, but I was going to say images because I'm used to rendering out an image sequence, but this is actually a movie. We're actually rendering out a video file here. And I should have clicked black and white here. It might have been better, but I mean, it's a black and white image. It's fine. It doesn't really matter a whole lot. And there we go. So this is what we have. We have our mask ring JPEG and our mask animation here. And let's go back here, and this is where we're going to test them out. So I'm going to copy this scene to a copy settings. I'm going to change build.01 to test. So now we have a build and a test. So if we come back to video editing, we don't see anything here. But if I come back here and add in our image, and then I add in our mask ring, here it is. And to use this as a mask, of course, we need to hide it and then add in our color right underneath it, and then come to our modifiers tab, go to add strip modifier mask, and then we're using the strip, which is our mask ring. So you can see that right there. Boom. And now we have a black ring, which we can change to any color that we desire. So that is pretty cool. And then I'm going to come up here. We're going to add in our movie, mask animation, grab that and pull that up here. And you can see we have this. But of course, we're going to use this as a mask. So I'm going to hide that. And then we're going to bring in another color. Grab that, move that up. And then modifiers, add strip modifier, mask, and mask animation. Okay, so now we have this. Let's bring all of these here to the end. So we have something that looks like this. Which is a start. So we have this color using this as its mask, but we can actually add another mask to this color so that it uses both the animation and the mask ring. So I'm just going to add another mask on that black color there, and then mask ring. So now we have something that looks like this. Ta-da! Awesome. So now we have from 0 to 100%. And then if we go to 50, this is exactly half, 50%, 75%, 25%, and on and on. And the cool thing with doing it this way is we have quick access to change these colors to any of the colors that we want to match our project. So we could have something like this. Maybe if I wanted to match the Blender Frenzy stuff, again, I could do a blue and an orange, something like that. But anyway, you can kind of see and play around with that. You can actually even have it play and change the colors on the fly. So you can see what it looks like in real time. And that's one of the best things about the VSE. I love when you can use these kind of things and you can change the colors and all of that stuff while you watch it happen. Okay, so we've got this. Let's get the percentage. So I'm going to copy this again, just do copy settings. This is going to be percentage. And now we have 3 different scenes. And that's just so we can keep track of how we render those out so we don't have to keep changing our render modes. You don't have to do it this way, but this is the way I like to work. So I'm going to add in a general geometry nodes, and bring this over here. We don't need that. And Shift A to add in a mesh plane. And with that selected, we can click this button here. For new geometry nodes, I'm going to click this pin button here so that we can always see this. I'm going to scroll out. We'll bring this over here. Let's hover our mouse over here. Let's Shift A and add in a camera. Press 7 on the numpad, and then make sure our view is lined up. Go to View, Align View, and Center View to Cursor, which it already is, but we're going to scroll in here, something like this, and then with your mouse still hovered over here, Control Alt and 0 to make this the location of the camera. But we still have a camera that is, if we go to our output properties, you can see the resolution is 1080 by 1080 still. I'm going to actually do 1920, but I'm going to do divided by 3. And then I'm going to also do 1080 divided by 3. Because we don't need the numbers to be all that big. But I do want this aspect ratio like this. And then if we select our camera and then press G and then Z, we can zoom in and out here like this. So I'm going to zoom in to maybe where it's right about, maybe like this. We can adjust it later. So down here, we can Shift A to add in. And if before you press anything else, you can press S to search. And then I'm going to say scene time. And then we're going to grab our frame, and we can't plug that directly in. It does disconnect these, so you can't see our plane anymore. But the frame won't work because this is geometry and this is just a value. So the first thing we need to do is add in a value to string. And a string is just a string of characters like letters, numbers, digits, whatever. If you think of one of those like alphabet bracelets, you string all the letters together. That's how I think of it. Anyway, we're going to put the frame into the value, and then we need to add in another node called string to curves here. Because then this is going to give us our geometry. So string goes into the string, and then this could go right into the geometry. And now you can see we have the scene frame. Now we don't see the frame numbers here, so I'm going to hover my mouse over here to where you see the crosshairs over the corner, click and drag up. We are going to change this to our timeline, and then now we can see our 0 to 100. And you can see as I change the timeline cursor by clicking and dragging right here, you can see these numbers go up. Now it's hard to see right now because it's not filled in, it's just an outline. So we can change that by hovering over here, Shift A, and adding in a fill curve. Hover that right over here and click, and then it will automatically add it to there and fill in that curve. Now we can see that number a lot easier. So let's come to this one here. I'm going to scroll in here. We have options here. So we have the size of this, but we also have spacing and position. So right now it's on the left of this here. And if I actually select the number, you can see there's this little dot here, not the 3D cursor. I'm going to actually get rid of the 3D cursor for now. But this little orange dot right here, that's the origin. So this is left aligned, so it's going to start here, and then all the numbers are going to come back out over here. So it just keeps going. If I go into 100, it's going to keep going out this way. So I can change that to center, and then now it's going to be in the center. And this is pretty straightforward, just like any sort of text editor. But we also want to change the top baseline to middle, so then it's right smack dab in the center of our view, which is what we want. But I also want one more thing with this. We want a percentage sign. So we want to actually take these two and we want to add in a join strings node right here. We're going to put this down into the strings so that we can still see it. And then we're going to add in a string and then make a string of our own, which is just going to be a percent sign. So we have that percent sign, and then we're going to drag it under. Now, if I drag it on top, it's going to be on the left, so I need to make sure we go in order. So drag this down and place it on the bottom, which will place it on the right. Okay, and then no matter what we have, no matter where we are on the timeline, it's going to show the frame, and then it's going to show the percentage. This is why we set our frame range from 0 to 100 to represent the percentage. Okay, the next thing we need to do is change, make sure that we have pure white here by setting a material. So if I hover my mouse over here, Shift A, we can add a set material node and plug that right in here. We of course now have to make the material by coming into the material tab, click new, and then change principled BSDF to emission. So it's just a straight white material. I'm going to double click here and say white. And now we can come over here and choose white. Now we don't see it here because we're just in solid shaded mode. So we need to come to material shaded mode and now disable our overlays. This is what we see. All right, so we are ready to render this out. Let's go to our rendering tab. And then I'm just going to check, press F12. We're going to render just one frame at a time here. Just kind of checking to see 30 should match 30%, 90 should match 90%, and so on. I'm just going to do a couple of random ones. And you know, what I am noticing now is kind of pixelated here, and that's because we're not actually using our space very well. This is really small compared to our space. So I'm going to come over back to the geometry nodes here, and then for our size, we're just going to, let's go to frame 100 because that's our longest number. And we're just going to pump that up and fill that to where it makes most of the use of our space here. Okay, I'm going to go back to rendering and then 12. There we go. So this is a lot better. And this is, again, this is why I check just some random frames before I actually render out the whole thing in case there are any problems. Okay, so now I'm going to change this to black and white, but everything else is going to be the same. Yes, this is good. We want the same frame rate, and it's going to be a video. I'm going to name it something different, of course, so I'm going to replace this name. It's going to be in the same folder, but I'm going to replace this with mask percentage instead of mask anim for animation. And if you don't change the name, it's going to overwrite your animation, and you'd have to redo that. So make sure you're aware of that. Save and Control F12 to render all of that out. Awesome. Okay, now we can go back to our test and go to our video editing, and let's go to the beginning and Shift A, add in our movie, which we have our mask percentage now, which is right there. And we can probably bring this down. Actually, let's go to frame 100 so that we can see what that looks like. We want to position that something like this, and then grab that and move that up here. And since this is a mask, what do? We hide it and we add in a color strip, go to our modifiers tab, and then add in a mask, strip mask, and that's going to be our percentage. So now we have the percentage as a color that we can change and make whatever color we want. And at 50%, you can see this says 50 and it's exactly half. That's going to match with everything that we have here. And this right here alone is pretty darn nifty, but you can actually make this last as long or as short as you want. And to demonstrate this, I'm going to use it on one of my little mini plugs for my website. So I'm going to add in down here a movie. And here's my little mini plug. It's about, let's see, what is that? About 22 seconds long. So let's come on over here, and I need to change this to a 1920 by 1080 here. I could type this in here, or if I can come down here, if I shift right click on there, I think it's shift right click for you too. I'm not sure, I'm using my own shortcuts, but you'll have to play around with that. Go to movie strip and then set render size. Boom. And now it's 1920 by 1080 because we are matching the video that we just imported. And now you can see we have this going around like that. I'm actually going to make the text, we're just going to do a red for now. We'll change these colors a little bit later. But what I want to do is I want to actually take all of these up here, put them in a meta strip, Control G. Then we're going to use a speed control to make it match the length of the video. So, but before we do that, we don't want to make the whole thing as a speed control. We want to, the very last frame, frame 100, we want to have that hang. So I'm going to go to frame 100 here and then press F to cut that. And I'm going to even drag the last handle out so that it hangs on that for a little while. And then I'm going to select this strip, go back in there by pressing tab, and then go to frame 100, and we're going to take all of these here and then snap them here. Because we don't want, if I move this here, if I drag this one out, we don't want any content beyond that point. We want to make sure that the content stops at frame 100. Otherwise, our results are going to get a little wonky. So just snap that back here, and we'll pull this in. And then if I select this meta strip here, Shift A, add in an effects strip, speed control, and I'm using the speed control method 3.2 because it's not yet ready for the speed stuff in 3.3 because they're kind of changing that, revamping it, but I've had some bugs using that, so this is the way I'm using it for now. But now if I select this one and then I shift select this handle, I can move that around and drag that to whatever length I want, and then the percentage is going to adjust because of the speed control. So I'm moving this whole strip right here and the handle on this one along with it. So I can actually place my cursor here, S to snap as well. And I'm going to go somewhere, I don't want to go all the way to the end because if I go all the way to the end, you won't see the 100%. So I'm going to back it up a little bit. So to blenderfrenzy.com and become a member. I think when I say become a member today, that's going to be at 100%. Like maybe right, 525. That looks like a good one. So right there. And then I'll drag this handle out all the way to the end here. I'm just pressing, I'm clicking and dragging, then holding control to snap, and that snaps to points of interest there. Let's see what we have here. You can find this video and a whole lot more by going to my new website, blenderfrenzy.com, where you can access lots of free and members-only content, including extra tutorials, downloads, assets, blend files, Q&A live streams, and much more. Signing up helps support me, which in turn gives you more Blender content, so head on over to blenderfrenzy.com and become a member today. All right, and a shameless plug there for blenderfrenzy.com, but that's it. So then you can change this to whatever length that you want. I'm going to do one more thing here because I want to add some text below this saying loading or maybe sponsor in this situation. So what I'm going to do is just click the meta strip, and then I'm going to type in, I think 0.7, maybe 0.8. And then I'm going to drag that and pull that up here so that we can just have some text on the bottom here. We're going to have to do it for this one too because you see it jumps. So select this one, shift select this one, and then we can just copy those. So right click, copy to selected, and then same thing for these two. There we go. So now it should be the same across the board. And then we can come to the beginning, add in a text, grab that and put that on top, grab this, pull that all the way over to the end, and I'm going to say sponsor because that is what this is. I'm going to open the fonts here and just choose a simple font. Go with this one. That's fine. I'm going to change the font color. Right now it is, we'll put a blue there. We're going to change all the colors here in a little bit, but just so I can see it, and then change the size to something like maybe like this. And then we can also bring that down on the Y a little bit like that. Okay, great. Now we can take all of these here. Let's save this here first so we don't lose our work, and take all of these, Control G, and put all of these in a meta strip. And so now I can take this meta strip and hover my mouse up over the preview, press S to scale, and we can move it anywhere on our screen, something like that maybe, and then we can play that. You can find this video and a whole lot more by going to my new website, blenderfrenzy.com. And I actually probably will add this to my promo so that people can see how long the promo is. They can realize, oh, this is going to be over in only a few seconds. So maybe that will give incentive for people to wait through it. I don't know. We'll see. All right. So now I just want to change the colors a little bit. So what I'm going to do is come in here, and I'm going to change. I actually like this blue color for the text and the percentage. So I'm going to come in here, go to the color of our mask ring. I'm going to hover my mouse over here, press Control C to copy. And then for the red text, I'm going to Control V to paste. I'm going to go one step further as well. We're going to click and drag out a new area over here and change this to the text editor. I'm going to add in a new text and paste that here. And I'm just going to say blue. I'm going to enter here, and then I'm going to come over to the orange. I like this orange. Control C to copy and then paste. This will be our orange. For the mask ring, I'm actually going to make this all the way white. So bring all the way down. And then for the value, I'm going to make this 0.9. So Control C, Control V to paste that. I'm just going to say gray for ease. So actually this orange I don't think is dark enough for this. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to up that saturation here. Something like that. Maybe 0.7. And you can always remember these here, but I just like to Control C to copy that, and then we'll replace this orange with that. Okay, you'll see why I'm doing this in a moment. So we've got the colors here like that. That's pretty good. I'm going to tab out, and then I'm going to, for our text sponsor, see this is why. So I have the orange. If I paste that here, I can make that orange, but I don't want that to be orange. I want it to be blue. So instead of tabbing back in the metastrip, tabbing back out, I have this over here. So I'm going to make this one this same blue. So I'm just going to copy all of that, including the brackets, and then Control V to paste that right there. And so now we have something that looks like this. And if I click and tab out again, now you can see lots of this looks a lot better. So now the reason we didn't have this as complete white is because if we did, then you wouldn't actually see the ring. So now we have something that looks like this. Okay, but when we come to the end, you can see, boom, it changes back to what we had it before, and that's because we have that little cut at the end. And this is again why I have all three of the colors right here ready to go. We just click in here and then we can change these. So we want the text to be our blue. So we're just going to copy our blue, which I think I already had it copied. Paste that there. And then we want this orange to be the different orange that we had set. So that's this one. Paste that a little bit darker there. And this is going to be our gray, just like that. And we tab out. And now it's the same. Oh, we got to refresh. There we go. Now it's the same. So now if we click anywhere and tab back out, since we have metastrips inside of metastrips, if you have a metastrip selected and you tab into it, and then you press tab again, it's going to just go back and forth inside and outside the metastrip. If I have nested metastrips, I have to click and make sure nothing is selected to tab out of the one that I'm currently in. All right, so now we have something that looks like this. You can find this video and a whole lot more by going to my new website, and I'll go ahead and where you can hide this so you don't have to listen to me say that again. But now you can see that this is looks good. It looks good with the website. It matches the colors. You can even come in here and take colors from your scene. So if you come here and do your eyedropper, now of course I can't do it here, so you just have to make sure that you have the colors, bring the colors out here. use the eyedropper to choose colors from your video, and then you can match the colors there, just like that. Okay, Justin from the future here, and you may have noticed if you scroll in here, you can see these nasty little lines or artifacts or whatever around the outline of the ring. If we come over to our rendering and I just F12 to render a single image, you can see that here. Let me actually go to slot 1 here, and we'll compare it. But you can see that this is producing some artifacts here, these dark things. It's a bit ugly. If we come here, we can see, yeah, just all around here. So there's a couple ways to get around this. And if I come back here, the first way is you can actually take your meta strips or any of the effect strips or even the regular strips and come over here to transform under the strip tab and change this to nearest instead of bilinear. Refresh down here. And that didn't work, so I'm going to tab in here. We're going to do it the same thing here with this meta strip here. Bilinear to nearest, and same thing with this one. And I'm going to tab back out to see if that changed. Okay, yeah, so that got rid of those artifacts there. What were we on, 14%? So let's go to 14% so we can just do a comparison. Let's go to 14% and then go to rendering. I'm going to do slot 2 and then F12 so that we can see the difference. So here's 1 and 2. If we click back and forth between them, it might be easier if we zoomed in. So this is 1 and 2. So you've got rid of those artifacts, but we still have this really hard, like jaggedy edge. I shouldn't say jaggedy. It's aliasing. Of course, it's an image. So one way to soften that is to use a Gaussian blur. So I'm gonna come back over here, and I'm gonna go into where we have our colors. And anywhere that this mask ring is being used, see, this is what we need to add the Gaussian blur to, our mask ring. So I'm going to just take these two, grab them and move them down 1, take the mask ring, Shift A, and add in an effects strip Gaussian blur. And then of course it's a mask, so we're going to use this as a mask instead of the mask ring. So just hide that like all of our masks. And then our color is what's using that. So if we go to our modifiers, our mask ring, we want to change this to Gaussian blur. And then I believe the orange is also using the mask ring. So yeah, we change that to Gaussian blur as well. And then we back out of there and back out. And this gives us a really nice, if we go to 14 again, let's go to 14 and go to slot 3 and then F12. This gives us a really nice, oh, it doesn't give us anything yet because we didn't set our Gaussian blur. So we have to go back into the blur, Gaussian blur, select that and go to the strip tab, and then we got to change this to 3. You can change it to be more or less. It's up to you, but I like the results of 3. So we come back out here, come over to our rendering tab and F12 again. And there you go. You see it blurred those edges. So when we scroll out, this is a nice smooth edge. And you can kind of tell the difference between slot 1 here, 2, and 3. And definitely the difference between 1 and 3. So 3 looks really nice. So we don't have any artifacts, and then the edges are a lot smoother. But let's go back here. We can't forget to change it for the very last frame because remember we had this. So we can either come in here and add a Gaussian blur in here, or I can just delete this one and then duplicate this over. And then of course we want to find the frame 100 where that starts. Oh, it doesn't. So we have to go in here, just drag these out a little bit, and there we go, frame 100. That's fine. Just find a frame like that, go, and then pull that in here, and then that should be the same soft edges as the rest of it. Yes. Okay, there you go. And then you just render that out, and it looks a lot nicer when it's put over a video. Here's the original video that I had, and you can see that still has the artifacts there. But if I duplicate these, pull that over, and then we can just hide that and then resize this down to whatever. And then that looks a lot better there. All right, so that is how you can do a little loading screen with a percentage and have the percentage match the ring that goes around. So much for this being a short video. As you know, I'm very long-winded. Maybe I'll take this video and I'll do a quick tip video after the fact and put that out next week. So you can watch the long version or the short version. Best of both worlds. But anyways, until then, you'll see me in the next one. You can find this video and a whole lot more by going to my new website, blenderfrenzy.com, where you can access lots of free and members-only content, including extra tutorials, downloads, assets, blend files, Q&A live streams, and much more. Signing up helps support me, which in turn gives you more Blender content, so head on over to blenderfrenzy.com and become a member today.